Greetings to the 12s out there. This is Corbin Smith of the Emerald City Spectrum. Mazvita. I'm never going to say your name correctly, my friend.
Mariera of Cascadia.net. You said it right before we got on.
But I didn't this time. So anyway, we're diving into the Seahawks preseason victory over the Kansas City Chiefs here at Lumen Field. And Maz, what a phenomenal start to this football game in terms of setting the tone, running the football. I think the Seahawks had 400 yards of rushing offense in the first quarter is what it felt like, just steamrolling Kansas City that played a fair number of starters actually on the defensive side of the football, fair number on offense as well. The Seahawks were able to move the football with ease, running it. We get to see Gray Zabel get after it as a run blocker. George Holani, Zach Charbonnet, Damian Martinez. It felt like everybody was running for big plays. Even Drew Lock had a 30-yard run in this game. Everybody was running wild, and leads to a 33-16 victory over the Chiefs. So the Seahawks get their first preseason win, really built around that run game.
Well, it's like you said, they set the tone. The opening drive was a 10-play, 68 yards, and then they had 6 out of the 10 plays, 6 were runs, 4 were passes. So you saw not only the run, I thought, and we heard kind of Sam Darnold talk about that. They're just 4 passes, but the diversity of the pass. But let me get back to what you're talking about in terms of setting the tone. And Corbin, you study offensive linemen more than anybody I know, but it was just the way in terms, from a layman, in terms they moved in unison. Regardless which way they went, you could tell they were units, and we've seen that in training camp.
Yeah, I was really thrilled to see the zone run game today because last week against the Raiders, it was all about the gap scheme. They were flying off the ball downhill and just bullying guys, and today it was about the horizontal displacement, getting everybody moving towards the sideline. And the 2 runs that really jump out to me, the first touchdown, a 15-yarder for Zach Charbonnet, that was a split zone, and we got to see Eric Saubert, the tight end, come over and just deck the edge. And that was after Gray Zabel and Josh Jones on the left side put their defenders on skates in a zone blocking scheme. They were moving them to the right, and then you had the edge guy moving out to the left with the tight end making the block, and that was a massive hole. You could have drove a semi through that.
Well, it was a parting of the Red Sea, if you will. He really was untouched. And to your point, he was untouched, and you rarely see that with 15 yards when you're that close in the red zone to go untouched in the belly of the defense.
Yeah, and then the next run that they had, literally the first play of the second drive, George Holani, who, I don't know what it is, that guy just, preseason games, he always seems to deliver. But that play, if you could put a semi through Charbonnet's run, I think you could have put 2 through the hole that they had for him on that play. And that was just a typical outside zone, gets downhill. Gray Zabel just moving his dude on skates out towards the sideline. And Holani didn't have anybody within 10 feet of him when he ran through that hole. It was massive, 30-yard gain before he gets pushed out of bounds. They had almost 200 rushing yards in the first half. Damian Martinez had a couple big runs before halftime. It just seemed like every concept that they were running in that first half, Kansas City had absolutely no answer for, and it made life easy for the quarterbacks that played in this game as well. We got to see Sam Darnold for a little bit. Drew Lock had a really nice game, 10 for 12, throwing the football, extremely accurate. It's a lot easier to do your job, though, when teams are focused so much on trying to slow down your run, and they can't do it.
And we heard that. And we heard that from Sam Darnold when he said, you know what, when we're able to run this way and that way, we, the quarterbacks, can tuck the ball and stress the defense also going sideline to sideline. And I thought that was a poignant point. But the other thing, going back to the offensive line there, Corbin, the power and speed, we've seen him working on this, and then the power, speed, and the physicality, 3 + 4 adds to what? Dominance.
Yeah, it really, and that was the perfect word to describe what we saw tonight in terms of the run game, the dominance and just getting the movement up front, whether it was getting guys downfield. Jalen Sundell had a really nice block at the second level, getting guys going sideways and winning those matchups. When you're able to do all those different things, the play action playbook for Clint Kubiak opens completely up. He can go to any chapter he wants, any play that he wants. We saw the bootlegs with Sam Darnold. We saw him with Drew Lock. getting those QBs moving out of the pocket, extremely accurate and efficient with those opportunities. And honestly, it slows down the pass rush. When you're worried about all these different concepts and you're not able to stop them, it really makes it tricky for a defense to be able to contain those play action plays, and it slows down the pass rush. And that's why we've seen only one quarterback hit on those two top quarterbacks here in the first two preseason games. Again, it's a preseason game, but that's a very encouraging development here early in Clint Kubiak's offense with this Seahawks squad and a new offensive line coaching group. John Benton so far working magic with this group.
Well, and we've seen some of those drills. And again, I'm going back to the power, but I think the one thing now you add is that they're working as a unit. The timing is really what stuck out to me. You know, the dominance, the physicality, all that stuff. But the timing is leading to that. And also, Jalen Milroe came in for a little,
a little tush push.
A little tush push. So again, I think, the other thing that comes to my mind is the creativity of Clint Kubiak. And I think that Jake Bobo didn't let on, but he said, you're going to see some things in terms of this offense. Somebody tried to ask him, probably you, about, hey, what are some of these concepts we're going to see? And he said, well, you know what? I can't really get into it, but you're going to see some of the things. I think they're going to be very, very creative with the run and the pass. But that ability, like you're saying, to dominate up front just opens up the playbook.
And that's really the key. And we've seen so many times with this Seahawks franchise in the last 15 years where they've been able to have success despite the fact that they have not had great line play. But this team, in order for this offense to be able to thrive, they're going to have quality, consistent line play. And at least for now, this looks to be trending in the right direction, seeing what Gray's able and the rest of this offensive line is doing. We don't have Charles Cross out there yet right now.
Nope.
And Oluwatimi is still banged up. I think Jalen Sundell, maybe we're going to have some Wally Pipp action here, stealing a job with an injured player. That may very well happen here if Oluwatimi's not able to get back here soon, because Sundell had a really good game as well. I want to shift the focus here to the defense, because it's easy to look at this game, sure. 33 points for the Seahawks, and say, okay, this was all about the offense, and they did set the tone. But you get a fourth down stop from Julian Love on the opening drive to turn the Chiefs back to the sideline with no points. And 6 of their last 7 drives, Seattle's defense gave up 9 or fewer yards on those possessions. 6 of the last 7. They had a safety in one of those as well. Mike McDonald was gushing about the way that his entire defense, this entire football team, top to bottom of the depth chart, was able to come out and get the job done today. Under 150 total yards of offense for the Chiefs. And I know Patrick Mahomes didn't play, but they had a lot of starters in the lineup in the beginning, going with Gardner Minshew, who has started a lot of games in the National Football League.
Well, we've heard Mike McDonald in terms of what he's trying to build, right?
Yeah.
First of all, it was the culture, year one, and then he said, you know what, then we're coming back around, and then we're going to build a system, and then I'll install. And he said, we're done with most of that for the system. Now it's the execution. So what you're seeing is from a man understanding the system, where they're supposed to be, and now they're executing. And it's about teaching.
The teaching aspect, look, these guys, and Julian Love was talking about this today after the game, they are now focusing on the details. They are not thinking big picture right now. With as many guys they have that are back from last year's team, and Mike McDonald year 2 with this defense, it is all about fine-tuning those things. And so that's another exciting development. It's totally different than the offense, where you are starting somewhat from scratch again. This defense, they have been able to come out and they are playing with their hair on fire. These guys are flying all over the field. You even have undrafted guys like today. It was Seth Coleman was the star. 1.5 sacks on defense. They're just getting contributions from everybody, guys flying all over the place. They aren't missing many tackles. McDonald cited that a couple times tonight, that's something he's really happy with. And that's tough in today's game with the lack of tackling that they do in practices, to take it over to game action, getting some good plays in the secondary as well, not giving up many explosives. They're checking off the boxes that Mike McDonald wants, and I think it just shows you the depth they've got on that side of the football.
Yes, and the fine-tuning, let's go back to that a little bit. It's now understanding the system, exactly, and having the player maximize the player's talent within that system, and that's why you have all this execution from first to second to third team.
Yeah, and you see a guy like Julian Love go out there in a preseason game, a 7th-year vet, and he comes up and sticks a 230-pound fullback at the line of scrimmage in a preseason game. Like, you have something like that happen, the young guys are going to respond to that and realize, like, I need to go out and I need to play. I need to bring top effort. When you see your vets going out and doing things like that, it's the culture that is being built and maintained here from the Pete Carroll era. Real quick, Maz, I want to talk special teams for just a second because there's a couple things that jumped out to me. Derek Young, we've talked a lot about him this training camp. He's really come on offense, but he's always been a good special teams guy. Had a 29-yard kick return today. He looked pretty darn good in that capacity. And how about Jake Bobo as a punt returner? Now, he told us not to look up his punt returning stats in college. I did, 5.6 yards per return.
Of course you did.
But he had a 20-yard return tonight, and teammates were talking afterwards about how funny it was seeing him do it. I thought it looked pretty darn clean. I didn't think it looked funny. 20-yard return for Bobo. You're seeing some of that depth that they've built showing up now at the receiver position with their return game, which was kind of an issue for them a lot of last year.
Well, George Halani is there.
Halani's there.
So it was interesting, Corbin, to go back a little bit because Jake Bobo said it was something that if they needed me, and he kind of knocked on the podium.
Knock on podium.
Right. And I thought it was interesting when he said, if they needed me. But now going back to the way Mike McDonald and the culture, so he uses him. So that if we do need him, he's at least has a rep in preseason.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of forethought and thinking ahead, attention to detail you're seeing here with Mike McDonald and also all his coaching staff. Because the key is, to make this team, there's multiple ways, and your position group, and special teams is the way.
It really is. And when you're talking about those last couple receiver spots, and this is why there's been the discussion about where Marquez Valdez-Scantling fits here with Torrey Horton emerging. I think he's still probably on this roster, but he hasn't played a special teams rep since 2021, and he's played no more than 2 in a season since 2018. He has not been a special teams guy. Derek Young is a core special teams player. Jake Bobo is a core special teams player. Cody White, if he's on this roster, is a core special teams player. So where does somebody, George Halani, the running back position, there's a lot of guys battling for those back of the roster spots that can play really high-level special teams, and so it creates some interesting discussions. There's going to be some hard decisions to make, including in the backfield when you're looking Damian Martinez. Jacardia Wright is running really well. There's going to be some really tough decisions that have to be made by John Schneider, Mike McDonald, and company, but nonetheless, they're not going to think about that tonight. They're going to enjoy this 33-16 victory, steamrolling over the Kansas City Chiefs with 268 rushing yards. I had 271 in my article, and then they had a 3-yard loss at the very end when I hit publish, but nonetheless, 268 rushing yards is a really impressive output. A lot to be excited about coming out of this preseason game. He's Maz Vida. I'm Corbin Smith for Emerald City Spectrum. Thanks for tuning in, and go Hawks.